Welcome everyone. It is 6:06 on Monday night, and you're listening to the 174th installment of the Age Out Angels Radio Hour right here on www.hamiltonradio.net Channel 2. I'm your host, Greg Rapport. I'm the founder and executive director of Age Out Angels. We're a 501c3 nonprofit corporation. Age Out Angels provides one-to-one mentors to vulnerable youth for the purpose of coordinating the care and services that they need to thrive. We try to help young people avoid some of the horrible pitfalls that they're likely to face when they don't have a proper safety net. And this program is brought to you every week at the same time, courtesy of Doc G, William Saunders, Ruben Rodriguez, and all the fine people here at Hamilton Radio who allow us to use this airtime. Ruben is on the big board tonight. Robin is producing, so good to have both of you with me. And thank you so much at home for tuning in. We have a bunch of different things to talk about tonight. I don't know if we're going to get it all in because our guests are so incredible, but we're going to start with solution-based casework. That's the wave of the future, people. If you're going to talk about child welfare, it's sort of evolving into family welfare. And tonight we're going to talk about one of the three tenets of solution-based casework. What is CBT theory? And why is it necessary to incorporate that into effective casework in the child welfare context? And then our guests tonight are going to talk about adult education and family literacy. We have Peg Gold, Assistant Director, Community Education and Training at Mercer County Community College, and my good friend, and Chris Hempel, Coed Region 1 Representative and Associate Director of Adult and Community Programs at EastCon. And then in my final words tonight, I'm going to say a little bit more of what I started last week about the city of Montreal. Because when you think about urban areas, you usually don't think about family-friendly environments, and Montreal is trying to break that mold, and it's worth a deeper dive. So can we pack all that into an hour? I don't know. We'll do our best. But with that in mind, if anyone would like to add to the discussion, whether it's positive or negative, you're welcome to call in. Don't be afraid. I'll say the number in a minute and post it on my Facebook page. And another thing we do every week is post some important phone numbers on my Facebook page, because the things we talk about can really trigger some deep feelings, you know? So if you need assistance or want to talk to someone about domestic violence, there's a phone number where you can talk to an expert. 866-331-9474 is the number. And like I said, it's posted on my Facebook page. Speak with a trained peer advocate. And if you're in crisis, connect with the right supports when you need it. You know, if you're thinking about harming yourself, you call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. I want you to do that for me. Make one phone call if you're in that way. 1-800-273-8255. And that's also the Veterans Crisis Line. If drugs and alcohol are an issue, there's the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration's National Helpline, 1-800-662-4357, and you can find those on my Facebook page. Please take a moment if you're looking at us on Facebook and hit that share button. We got up to 40,000 listeners, and we kind of capped there, and we need you to tell everyone in your world what we're talking about tonight. How do you think we got to 40,000? It was with nice people like you who hit that share button. And what you're going to hear tonight applies to every geographic region. This needs to be shared, so please share what you're hearing right now. And I want you to stay with Hamilton Radio all night long. This station plays the best music ever. So once you're done listening to our show, if you're on Hamilton Radio, don't go away. Stay right where you are. This week, in fact, we continue our pledge drive for Hamilton Radio. If you'd be so kind, and you're not there, but maybe you could go to www.hamiltonradio.net anytime, and on the welcome screen, you'll see a chance to make a little donation. And this station has been so wonderful to us over the years. Ruben went into the studio religiously every single week in the heart of the pandemic, week after week, just to broadcast our show, while other shows were, just sort of, running away screaming. He was coming in just to broadcast our show. So, he deserves a little something for that. If you want to know about child welfare, this is where you come to get the whole truth. And I promise what you will hear tonight cannot be found on the nightly news. And since we're live, you can write to us during the show in the comments field on Facebook. You can call in if you want to join the conversation, and that number is 609-807-2492. And a whole bunch of people. Whoa, Barry has friends. Or you have friends. Barry says hello, Kristen. Hello, Peg. I haven't introduced you yet. You're already making an impact. That's pretty cool. Be part of the show, 609-807-2492. I want to remind people all over New Jersey about the Bridges to Employment program. And usually I tell you about the statistical numbers of foster children who need help with their high school equivalency and stuff like that. But tonight, instead, I want to tell you about the most amazing story. There was a person, and I'm not going to say anything that will reveal who this person is, okay? But you got to listen to this because it's very, very important. We've been doing Bridges to Employment now for about, I don't know, what, 15, 16 months? And so one of the people who joined us last April, we give a diagnostic test, and this person, scored so low with a high school diploma. This was someone with a high school diploma. They scored so low on the math section that we couldn't even get a grade level equivalent. And about 8 months later into our program, we retested, and that was last April, and that person scored at a 7th grade level. That was after 8 months in the program. But that's not all. Oh no, it gets better. Last Tuesday, okay, this is from April to October or September, April to September. She enrolled and took her first classes in college, and it just knocked me out. When she texted me, I said, "You did what?" And she said, "Did I do something wrong?" And I said, "No, you did something amazing." But that's what it means. And we're going to talk so much about that tonight, because that's what it means when you find the right way to educate a person who doesn't have to not have skills. That's someone who is totally capable, but just had things that happened in their life that made it hard for them to go to school and finish school. And here you go. This is a foster kid going to college. That's the 3% who graduates, and we will stay with her. We will stay with her right on through all of college. We will make sure that she has tutors. If she ever gets lost along the way, we'll send out a search party and find her. Jean Antonelli is on the line. Hi, Jean. It's great to have you with us. Someone wrote, awesome. From Dress for Success. Whoa, how about that? Anyway, so that's the story about Bridges to Employment. So if you know somebody who's out there who they have to have some kind of a foster care background, they don't have to be in foster care immediately now, as long as they had a case number at some point. And ages, I believe, are 16 to 24. And they could have a high school diploma. They could not have a high school diploma. It doesn't matter, because Bridges to Employment isn't just an education program. It means that we prepare you for post-secondary education or some kind of a career where you can actually make a livable wage. Someone who rejected my program yesterday, it happened just yesterday, said to me, "No, I have a job. I have a job. I'm interviewing at McDonald's tomorrow." And you know what? Good on you. It's a job, right? Not everybody even has a job. But our goal is to get you a livable wage, and you're not going to get that at McDonald's, and you're not going to get that at the job that you're leaving to go to McDonald's. So if you're right for this, or you know somebody who is, I am running out of spots in this program. We're getting close to our 25-person max, and I want you to call me directly, 609-306-0821. Solution-based casework. Child welfare practice model based on three theoretical foundations. That was too many THs. 3 theoretical foundations. One is family life cycle theory. We talked about that last week. Family life cycle is, think about the whole nuclear family and the stages that they go through as a nuclear family, and that casework has to understand the stage that they're in and where they need supports, okay? So we're not going to talk about that tonight. I'll probably review it in 3 weeks from now. Tonight, we're going to talk about what's called relapse prevention, CBT theory. And if you want to know if this stuff is sort of new, and Jim Corio is listening. Hey, Jim, we've been jabbing each other on Facebook all afternoon. I didn't know you knew I had a show. Hi, Jim. Anyway, if you think this stuff is new, a lot of this comes from something written by the two people, I shouldn't say fellows, Marlatt and Gordon. And guess what year that was? 1985. And a lot of this has been in practice by psychoanalysts and other people who have done treatment programs for drug abuse and stuff like that. So this has been going on for almost 40 years. New to child welfare, okay? So relapse prevention is an important component of alcoholism treatment, is where it started. Suggests that you have to, if you're in a family where this is prevalent, and it is in a lot of cases where there are children in foster care, you have to take certain things into consideration to prevent the relapse. And the idea of preventing the relapse is, well, they say that there are, they break down these things into two categories. One is called an immediate determinant, which means when a person who has, like, say, stopped drinking finds themselves in a high-risk situation. And that's where somebody shoves a drink under your nose and says, come on, just this once, right? The coping skills to be able to deal with that. Anybody, if you smoked cigarettes, you know how hard it is, to quit some of these things. And when you're in those situations where they just sort of smack you in the face, it's hard to say no. And then there's a second thing that they refer to as covert antecedents, which includes lifestyle factors, which is sort of urgings and cravings. Because a lot of times people who are using alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, do it because they don't know what to do when they're alone time. They're alone with themselves, they're alone with their thoughts. And that these are things that can contribute to relapse. So this model of relapse prevention incorporates all of these, specific and global intervention strategies that allow, well, the therapist, but in this case, the caseworker and client, to address each step of the relapse process and prepare them with a strategy that they can use to prevent that. And this is now all part of the child welfare system, okay? If you understand that we're trying not to put kids in foster care, but strengthen families, because that's what the Family First Prevention Act says we have to do, then this is all part of that. And this is going to require a lot of partner agencies. There's not going to be an overworked caseworker who's going to be able to do all this, okay? This is going to require all the little agencies like Age Out Angels and the other 800 nonprofits in Mercer County to participate in this, because Age Out Angels is such a perfect example of this. We don't work with whole families. We only work with individual children and youth who were in foster care and are aging out of foster care. But a small organization like ours, as opposed to, say, like, giant organizations, can have one board meeting and adopt a new direction or a new angle or a new program that deals with families. So smaller agencies can be right there in support of the caseworkers, and it could work. I mean, it certainly is beautiful if you think about it, but there's one thing that's absolutely positively required in this, and that is that the family itself has to be a willing participant, okay? Spoke to somebody the other day. I was trying to convince her to take the vaccine. She had just gotten out of rehab. I said, come on, take the vaccine. She said, no, I'm worried about what it puts into my body. I said, I grew up in the 60s. There's nothing that can hurt me after that experience. Between the drugs and McDonald's, what I grew up into, there is nothing you can put in my body that can hurt me now. When the vaccine goes in my body, it says I have a cousin in the 70s who knew this guy. So hopefully, she ended up taking it. But the point is, you have to be a willing participant. You have to at least meet the caseworkers halfway. My guests tonight are like an inspiration. They promote and they are practitioners of adult education and family literacy. You all know Peg Gold. She has been here so many times. She's practically my guest co-host. So I'm going to say hi to you second, Peg. But I do want to introduce everyone to Kristen Hempel. And Kristen is the Coed Region 1 Representative and Associate Director of Adult and Community Programs at EastCon. So apart from having the longest title of anyone who's ever been on the show, Kristen, let me just say hi and welcome you to the Age Out Angels Radio Hour.
Thank you very much. It's delightful to be here.
It's so good to have you here. And Peg, it's always great to have you here as well. Welcome.
Thanks, Greg. Good to be with you.
Are you going to be also back next week with Robert?
I am able to be, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So Peg is going to be doing double duty. Get used to her. Kristen, when I introduced you, I said you were the Coed Region 1 representative. So I think we should start by telling everyone what Coed is.
Absolutely. Thank you. So COAID is the Coalition on Adult Basic Education, and we represent about 65,000 adult educators, administrators, and mentors across the country. Our mission is to inspire educators so that learners succeed and that communities thrive. We do this by promoting leadership, by communication, professional development, advocacy for adult education and literacy practitioners, all to the goal of advancing quality services for all adult learners. We also do a lot of work with workforce.
And COAID, that's the acronym for?
Coalition on Adult Basic Education.
Coalition on Adult Basic Education. Excellent. Now, you know, how many people do you support in your effort personally?
Region 1 is essentially New England, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. So all states near and dear to my heart, having lived or worked in most of them. My son right now is actually nestled in college out in Pennsylvania. So traveling that corridor quite a lot, and have just been delighted to be able to work with so many educators across this region.
Fantastic. You know, you answered my next question, because there's an old adage that says you shouldn't manage people until you've actually raised children. And it sounds like you've earned your stripes in that regard. So a little bit quickly about what your background is, Kristen.
Sure. I started my career in education in Rhode Island, where I worked for the Met Center, which is a big picture school. It was sort of the flagship school where they were developing some really innovative educational practices. From there, I moved on to work just outside of Syracuse, at an independent school where I was head for primary education, and then moved back out to Connecticut, where my husband is from. And here I did some work in some online K-12 schooling before transitioning into adult education and finding, as my dad would say, what makes my heart sing.
You're working with the people who are educating the adults, right?
Yes.
Okay. So do you think of yourself as kind of a trainer of that?
My background is educational leadership, and well, before that was social studies. But so as a principal sort of piece, I convene lots of discussions. I really see my role in a lot of places as being able to help clear the playing field so that the people who really know what's going on and what needs to get done, that they can be supported to make those decisions in a very effective and efficient manner. So does that answer your question?
Absolutely. And Peg, how many years have you been in adult education?
35, Greg.
35 years. Wow. That's just incredible. Again, any major differences, any major changes that have happened over the years that come sort of off the top of your head?
Oh my goodness. When I think about back in the 80s, Greg, and I first started this, you know, it was, you were teaching for the joy of getting people to love reading, for the joy of, you know, getting people to have a lot of fun doing math. And you know, over these 35 years, adult education has evolved to be primarily workforce and employment focused. And we now have a lot of performance metrics. We are really data driven in terms of what we offer, how much we offer, and student performance. They're like at the forefront of what we do now.
I was, you know, when you were saying that, I was just thinking that the people that we serve in the Bridges program, you know, really require a lot of highly, I'm not going to call it highly specialized, but I'm going to say tailored, you know, curriculums to them. And it was when you said the joy of reading, you know, the joy of learning. That, I mean, that really caught my ear because, you know, I find that that's missing in so many young people today. The kids graduate high school, don't have any skills.
Yeah.
never caught the joy part of that.
And the demographic has changed over time. When I first started in the 80s, this is just kind of generally speaking, Greg, the average age of student in my classes was in their 30s, maybe 40s. Then over time, it kind of pushed down to 30s and late 20s. To then we get to the 2000s and 2010s, and we're mostly people in their 20s. Now it's shifted to include a heavy number of students who are in their late teens, like the 16 to 24-year-old demographic. It's flooded with people in that group.
Absolutely true. I finally reached a 17-year-old boy today who had been kicked out of his high school because they said he was a bad influence. You know, they expelled him from his high school because he was a bad influence, and he's 17 years old. Today was the first day after 6 months that I was able to sort of get through to him, and it was a pretty amazing breakthrough. What a day we had today. But speaking of joy, Kristen, is that a word that comes up in the trainings and things like that? And like, what do you do to support a word like that?
I don't know that joy comes up as much, although I certainly try to instill it in all of our practices. We do definitely. Oh, actually, I mean, we do talk about it in terms of orientation, and but it comes across more as passion and interest, and really trying to help our students identify goals and why they're doing it, and to find that lever that's going to make it click and be exciting for them. But yes, I think as a team, joy is very important. I love hearing the laughter and the sometimes the singing that happens in the classrooms, and I think that relationship is critical, and I think that adult educators get that and really work hard to build relationships, because that's what will keep students coming.
Yeah, see, I'm very lucky in that regard, because actually Peg is responsible for the education component. I get to bring the fun. So I don't pretend to be a teacher. I just pretend to play one, and it's good. It's something that they should have in their lives, is what I'm saying. You have fans out there, Peg. Is that Brandy Cardwell? Brandy, hi.
Yeah.
Glad you're listening.
And also with Kristen too.
Yeah. And Kristen, you went away. I hope you come back, because I was about to ask you a question, because you're not just working with you're not just training the trainers. Apparently, you also do a certain amount of work with politicians, right? It says you meet with congressional reps and senators.
Absolutely. A big part of what we do at Coed is advocacy. And so what we do in that role is we reach out to local, to state, and to national leaders to make sure that they understand the importance of adult education and fully funding these programs, that they understand the impact that providing real classrooms and the tools that students need in order to succeed, how that will then trickle down to impact our communities, our healthcare system, our national economy, all of that.
I'm so thrilled. I mean, this sounds like a lobbying effort, and I'm just so thrilled that it exists, because frankly, I didn't know that it did. I just thought we were always out in the cold, but they're working on the infrastructure bill, right?
Yes.
Go ahead, Kristen.
No, I was just going to say, one of the things on our plate right now is we're advocating for $1 billion, right, to help adult education programs deal with the impact of COVID. But we're also advocating for $692 million in WIOA Title II adult ed appropriations to address some of those funding gaps.
You have to say what WIOA is.
Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act.
Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. And okay, so $692 million for adult education for that. And I mean, the last time I looked at that, a major portion of it had to do with modern manufacturing training and things like that, because it looked like the whole manufacturing community, required that in order to have a workforce that could handle the manufacturing demands. the period that we're looking into. Um, but Peg, I wanted to ask you about what it's called AEFL week.
Right. That's adult education and family literacy, Greg. We get our own special week to commemorate and heighten awareness of our programs and our causes, our needs and our successes. Starts this Sunday, September 19th, and it runs all of next week through September 25th. Coed itself, as a national organization, they have events planned every day. Coed as an organization will recognize outstanding contributors from elected offices that have made significant contributions to the field of adult education, whether that's giving additional support or whether it's financial support or whatever it is. But we will celebrate all things adult education and family literacy focus next week.
Can I put a plug in there? Can I?
Oh, absolutely.
Two of the afternoon activities at 2 p.m. I think one's on Monday and one's on Thursday, have to do with our adult learners. The one on Thursday is about the return on investment. So looking at how investing in these learners really does pay huge dividends. But then the one on Monday, we're looking at programs succeed when learners lead, and really looking at how to support student leadership development on multiple levels, and really opening doors and opening conversations so that adult learners have voices at the tables, and are really contributing to where we're going in terms of our programming and our systems.
So, Peg, are we having any success with the government leaders?
Yes, I mean, in my role as the New Jersey advocate for adult education, I've contacted and spoken with staff of federal elected officials. I have state elected officials on my calendar. I have local elected officials. Later this week, I will meet one-on-one with a local mayor about adult education, family literacy, our needs, and our students. And in fact, I met with a federal government leader staff, and following that meeting, her office contacted me and asked for information about statistics that would support the need for universal broadband coverage for all individuals. Now, this is a major, major issue. And the end of that is that went into a bill that the congressperson was writing and used my data in that. But universal broadband is so desperately important because in the middle of this pandemic, and we may be coming out on the other side of it, who knows, but we will not go back to the pre-internet days at all. And urban centers like Trenton, where I am, just is like a desert of internet. People don't have devices, or they can't afford the speed and all kinds of things. So universal broadband coverage will provide the ability for just anybody to have access to internet. It would be like turning on your kitchen sink, your faucet, and water comes out. You get water, and then you pay your bill for the water. And universal broadband would provide free or low-cost internet access to all individuals. And that is part of the infrastructure plan.
Oh, I think that is so incredible, and we see it here in Trenton, which is really, as urban areas go, is kind of a small one. It's not a big one when you consider urban areas. So if you see it in Trenton, you can just imagine it in Newark and Elizabeth, and that's just New Jersey. And every other urban area, if you're listening to this broadcast and you live near an urban area, guess what? There's tens of thousands of people who don't have connectivity, and that connectivity is a lifeline in this current, with the pandemic, of course, but just in the current world that we live in. The connectivity is an absolute lifeline, and if you can get that, I just think that's absolutely amazing. I do need to take just one moment here, ladies, if you'll pardon me, before we go further. I need to thank all the people who made donations to Age Out Angels this week. We thank you so much for your generosity. If you have an employee giving fund or matching gifts foundation associated with your place of work, we would certainly appreciate your contacting us and telling us how we can participate in that. Private message me on Facebook or email directly to greg@ageoutangels.org. And I want to remind everyone that you can donate to Age Out Angels every time you make a purchase from Amazon. All you have to do is designate Age Out Angels to be your Amazon Smile designee, and a portion of your payment will go directly to Age Out Angels without it costing you one more penny. I can make it easy for you to designate Age Out Angels as your Amazon Smile recipient. All you have to do is contact me either via Facebook or greg@ageoutangels.org, and I can send you a link that will take you directly to our designation. Peg and Kristen, are either of you involved with organizations that utilize Amazon Smile?
I am not.
Okay,
not
then I
correct.
don't have to share any of it this week. Just Age Out Angels. We get it all. It's so good to have you both here. If you are just joining me, my guests are Kristen Hempel and Peg Gold. Peg is the Assistant Director of Community Education and Training at Mercer County Community College. Kristen is the Coed Regional 1 Representative and Associate Director of Adult and Community Programs at EastCon. What's EastCon, Kristen?
Thank you. Yes, EastCon is a regional education service center. It's in Connecticut, so we work with 21 well, for adult education, we serve 21 towns up in Stores. So if you know where, the Yukon Huskies play, that's my area. We have a small urban environment, a couple of those, and then a lot of beautiful pastures.
Yes, I've spent half my life being intimidated by their girls' basketball team.
Something else.
And so, Kristen, while I have you on a roll here, what is the impact that COVID has had on the programs and on the learners?
I think that we can point to some of the things that we've learned. It really highlighted, as Peg was discussing, the critical, absolutely critical need for access to broadband internet, and the digital divide, and the impact of low digital literacy on having students be able to access critical services, program services, information, all of that. I would say we've also learned a lot in terms of how we can be more flexible and provide students additional ways to access service. So those students who did have some of the digital literacy or did have access, but for where I come from, there's some rural areas, and there's also places with poor transportation. Having other opportunities that were online let us broaden our reach into some pockets. So we've struggled, I think, with the particularly low-level ESL students in terms of being able to really effectively reach them with through the Zoom platform and all of that we've been using. But once we make those connections, students are so engaged and grateful. And I think we've had some wonderful partners. And I know we've mentioned a few of our adult education friends already in this program, but who will, I guess, Robert next week might even tell you a little bit more about their role and how they support us. But all of those have been critical pieces, I think, in terms of what we've learned during COVID. And we need to come together. I think that's, one of those big learnings is that we can do this, we can be flexible, and it's an all hands on deck sort of approach. And I've been really thrilled to learn so much from colleagues like Peg.
And what really opened my eyes, I'll tell you both, is when you are working with a group of youth who don't have connectivity and haven't had the tech devices that most of us middle class folks just take for granted. I mean, you get a new one every 2 or 3 years, right? Mm-hmm. Don't know actually how to use the technology. And I will tell you that I spent an hour today helping a person get a Gmail account. Yep. And then how to get their emails, after they had the Gmail account. It just boggled my mind that I had to do that. And of course it was a labor of love, but that shouldn't be. That shouldn't be in this world that we live in. There shouldn't be this whole underclass of people that that doesn't even know how to use the devices. You know, it's almost like telling people that, you know, having a class of people who don't know how to drive a car, you know, or anything that we now take for granted, because tech is all an example of that now. Peg, what's the value of going back to school for high school equivalency? Amazon will hire you if you walk in the door and you're breathing.
Respectfully, Greg, that's true. I mean, getting a job at a large corporation like Amazon is relatively easy, especially now the holiday time is coming up and, you know, the pandemic increased online buying. But then come post-holiday, large corporations, and I'm not singling any single one out, but they will shrink their workforce. Now, who will be most likely to be the first let go? Those without an education, those without a high school equivalency. I mean, adult education pays. It pays back in terms of it ripples through the family so that the next generation of kids are less likely to leave school. It ripples through the family because mom, dad, or whoever the main income earner is in the household can maybe now get a job at a higher paying wage, or maybe cut down 3 part-time jobs to 1 full-time job. For every 100 hours that an adult spends in adult education, there is about a $10,000 difference in salary, positive difference. Does adult education pay? Yeah. Do you have to struggle and kind of pinch and kind of give up watching TV on Wednesday night and Thursday night to be able to improve yourself, to get those skills so that you can go out and earn that extra money? Yeah, it's going to mean you have to cut some of those extra things out for a little while. Out for how long? Maybe 6 months, maybe 3 months, maybe 8 months. But the return on that is so much beneficial. It's so much more beneficial. No one will ever remove education once you have it. No one can take your high school diploma away. No one can remove your college diploma. No one can ever have you unlearn what it is that you've learned. No one can ever remove you from anything except by your own choice. It is just so extremely direly important. We are right on the precipice right now, Greg, of society reopening and more people being allowed to be in areas, you know, with PPE and all of that. But who better to be equipped than adult education, adult educators? Because who have been our students all along in this, Greg? They have been the overlooked frontline workers. I applaud, I laud the paramedics, the nurses, the doctors, the scientists, all of those people on those front lines who have worked hands-on day in and day out tirelessly. But students like our adult students, they're the forgotten, they're the overlooked. They're the people who are working in a warehouse to get the packages to you when you buy them. They're the people punching the cash register at the grocery store, because at no point was the grocery store closed down. Who was checking you out? Many students who come to adult education programs, who were doing the janitorial, the cleaning, the maintenance, the sanitizing. Many of our adult students, now is the time for them to really work and get themselves together, work with adult education programs, and be able to get that high school equivalency, improve their English language fluency, and move on to a better, more stable, brighter future. And that's what adult education's impact is on adult lives.
You just checked so many boxes for me. And I have to tell you, when the person told me that they were going to college, the person I referenced earlier who's in our program, the first thing that I said was do you realize the model example you just set for your children? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, there's children there, and they could see somebody who never graduates high school, or they could see somebody there, you know, who works hard and goes to college. And I tell all the kids, especially the females who come into our group, about my mother. because she was exactly what you described. She was the 35-year-old who went back to high school because when she grew up, they wouldn't let girls go to college. They put her in seamstress school, and she could never sew, but went back to high school, and 10 years later, got her college degree and ultimately became a vice principal of a school as an educator. And whereas before that, you know, I'm not going to say nothing, housewife. It was an important job. We were glad she was there, but we grew up, right? We grew up and left, and here she went on and had like a vital 25, maybe 30 years in the workforce. You know, go ahead, Kristen.
Sorry, I also just want to point out a lot of our students, our ESL students, who are coming to us with credentials and skills already. And so we are able to provide those opportunities to learn the language, to be able to then transition either into the careers that they trained for or into our, training system so that they can recertify and do what they need to do here in the States. And that's a huge, skill loss that we would have if we didn't have adult education programs poised to provide that bridge for all of these, ESL students that come in.
See, I have this dream for ESL students. I really do. And this might sound a little humorous, but it's not a joke. I'm deadly serious. I believe that a tutor who wants to learn the language of the family of the ESL student, right, should be able to work with the whole family, and they teach the tutor their language and their customs. The tutor then responds by teaching that family, what they need to know. It seems to me, like a perfectly appropriate reciprocal kind of relationship. No money has to exchange hands, just, an eternal friendship. I think that would grow out of it.
No, I agree. I think those kinds of partnerships are really powerful and meaningful. But I think that our trained ESL teachers bring a lot to the table in terms of their knowledge about how to teach ESL or how to teach English and help people to make that progress quickly and efficiently. But I agree that those language partners and those relationships and those collaborations are really important.
Well, you are the expert. I did mention that I just play at this, right? So, all right. So what do people need to do now? Is there like, some kind of registration? I guess, Peg, this is for you for ESL registration.
I had asked to have posted in the chat our online portal for registration. So Mercer County Community College is in Trenton. It's at 102 North Broad Street in downtown Trenton. Our English as a Second Language registration will be available at that portal, www.mcc.edu/CETREG. It will open at 9 o'clock on Monday morning, Monday the 20th of September, Adult Education Family Literacy Week. And we will have registration Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday next week for our ESL classes. We anticipate ESL students being on site here at Trenton October 4th, which is the start of the next session. First step is to get that registration in. Our high school equivalency program at the same portal will open on October 18th. Just looking at my calendar of dates, October 18th. And again, we anticipate having those students return to in-person sessions here at James Kearney campus at 102 North Broad. And I also asked to have the phone number put in. That's my office number. It is 609-570-3133, 3133. If anyone didn't write it down, the website or the registration portal rather, or has questions or information or isn't quite sure or this or that, please give me a ring. I'll be glad to talk to anybody who has any questions, help as much as I can. But that's where we are. We anticipate being back full force come October 4th. Students for ESL classes for 2 weeks, and then our HSE group will join them. We're currently in the middle of sessions that are remote. So rather than kind of, switch gears yet again in the middle of a session, bring everybody back, we're finishing out each session and then bringing students into the campus when the next one starts.
And you should know that this has all been posted twice now, right under the in the comments field under this show. So if anyone looks at this, like not just today, but tomorrow or a week from now, they will still see all of this information here.
Oh, Greg, I should also add that all of the programs in my department are free. Not people have to apply for scholarship and this and that and the next thing. We receive funding through WIOA that Kristen talked about, Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. All of our classes are funded through that avenue. So they are free for students. We do not have devices to supply to students, unfortunately. However, we do have everything affiliated with the program 100% free.
Absolutely. And actually, for the Bridges program, we can give them all the supplies that they need. So they're covered with that as well. Kristen, where's all this going? After the Family Literacy Week that's coming up, are the numbers growing? Are there more people in adult education? Is there a lack of teachers? I know PEG's ESL teachers are fabulous. I've actually audited and I love them. But where's all this going?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I'm anticipating that there will be an increase in numbers. I think that COVID has hit the K-12 system really hard, and it's impacted a lot of our high school learners, our middle school learners. And so I think that there's going to be an increase over the next few years. We also, with the change in our workforce needs, there's a lot of people out there who are going to be looking to reskill, to upskill, trying to change jobs and having access, and they're coming in with maybe some lower skills. Maybe they do have a diploma or they do have something, but they're not testing high enough, or maybe they were able to progress and be promoted in their place of employment, but again, they don't have a diploma, and now they're switching jobs, and they need to have that to show that they have that knowledge base behind them. So I do think that the numbers are going to increase, and there's going to be a lot of work to be done. We're also really emphasizing in a new way the digital literacy skills and how fundamental that is, and so that also increases the tasks that are on all of our plates.
So Adult Education and Family Literacy Week, does that have like a national website or something like that people can go to and learn more about it? Do you know?
It does. Do you want to, I can put it into the chat.
Yeah, and it's basically on the Coed, National Coalition webpage. Information about that, Greg. And all of the activities, there's even sample letters that if listeners, how can they get involved? Why would they get involved? Well, the why is evident because return on investment and just the notion of education in general. And who can't use a second chance, third chance, fourth chance at some point in their lives? And many adult students, for whatever reason, they have not had that opportunity, or they haven't really taken advantage of it in the way they should. So they can use any of the information resources on the Coed AEFL site to either shoot out an infographic on their Facebook page. There's Twitter quotes that they can use to put out on their Twitter feed. They can write to their local legislator. They can write to their state legislators. They can write to their state governors. They can write to their federal representatives. So there's not anything anybody can do except nothing. Because when you do nothing, the outcome is also nothing. So do something and step up and just copy and paste the Twitter handle in your Twitter account. I do that every morning. I come into work, I look at them, and I just pick one out and copy and paste it and put it up on my Twitter. And that's all it is.
It's funny. What I tell people a lot of the times is you've had a hard life. I understand that. Not you, Peg. I mean, the kids that I talk to. I understand that you've had a hard life, and you have my sympathy. But in a life that's been hard, you probably haven't had much opportunity. And so you're not used to hearing this sound, because this is what it sounds like when opportunity knocks. You have this free thing, and it's sitting here waiting for you, and it will make your life better. And yes, you might have to persevere a little bit to get through it, but you know, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. It's not. But this is what opportunity sounds like. And now what you have to do is you have to step up. You got to open that door, and you have to walk through it. And hopefully that'll inspire someone somewhere. I mean, if you're listening to this right now and you're in Kentucky, and you're wondering how you're going to make a living after coal mining, you know, or some occupation that no longer exists, like I don't know, even a professional occupation like chemist at Kodak. That job doesn't exist anymore. It happens. Jobs and things go away. This is an opportunity to step up and just, you know, get some form of training. And so, Kristen, I want to ask you one final question tonight, because I know when we talked earlier, you told me that when you started your education career, and we will get that posted in the Facebook comments field, Kristen, I promise. You told me when you started your education career, you were in a sort of an innovative setting where you had, okay. And the point of me asking the question in this way is, you were young in education, found yourself in an innovative setting, and must have felt fabulous that you could bring a ton of your own personal creativity into that effort. And so my question to you is, when you're training people, how much of their just own personal creativity do you encourage them to use? And do you find out about others and then share it across the board so that everybody can participate in a great idea?
Excellent. Before I answer that question, I'm going to say I also put a second link in there. So if someone's listening from Kentucky, they can go to that link and find an adult education center close to them. Okay. So I just wanted to point out what that second one was.
Sounds good.
Just don't want to leave our friends in Kentucky out.
No.
But it's a national database of places people can get connected to adult ed. So I will say I got the best compliment the other week from one of my teachers. I guess maybe it was at the start of our summer session. We were piloting something new for the third time, right? Because with COVID, every session we're piloting a new iteration. Yeah. And she said, you know, one of the things I love about working here, Kristen, is that you don't mind when we take a sledgehammer to the walls. And I say, heck, no, I give you the sledgehammer. You know, I throw a party. I really feel like that's part of our job, right? I mean, our students have had enough barriers. It's our job to take the sledgehammer and get rid of as many as we can. And sometimes that includes what we know from our experiences and that we bring forward. And so I get so excited when people want to try something new. And I really encourage that. One of my favorite things is doing observations and popping around and being able to say, oh my goodness, you know, did you know I was just in so-and-so's classroom and they're doing this? Have you tried something like that? Maybe you guys should talk, you know, so really, again, bringing people together, because I think it's through those collaborations. No one has done this before. What we're doing right now, no one has done. There isn't a playbook. We have to be real and innovative all the time, bringing forward the best practices from the past, bringing forward all the training that we have done. We are skilled educators, and that is real and important tool. And we need to be creative and relationship oriented and know our environment and our partners and what the opportunities are for our students.
You're both amazing, and I want to tell you that we talked right through my segment on Montreal.
Oh no!
Because it turns out that you're both actually more important than the whole city of Montreal. But I promise you, I will get to Montreal at some point because it's worth it too. And I want to go there next summer because that's how excited I am about what they're doing. So maybe next week I'll try, but Peg's going to be back next week with another one of her friends and colleagues. So I can't promise you that we'll get to Montreal next week. But we will do our best. That's all the time we have, everyone. Thanks so much for listening. Oh, I want to remind you, anyone who shared our program on Facebook, you get double dessert tonight. So make sure that you take advantage of that special offer. We'll be back next Monday, 9:20. Peg will be back. More on adult education. Special guest is Robert Breitbard from Burlington English. He will be on with Peg and me. Thanks to our producer, Robin, to our engineer, Ruben. We could not live without either of you. Music provided by Angel Fire. Stay safe, everybody. I need you alive and well to listen to this program. And until next time, let's make this week the best week ever. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Greg.